Well, this is segment 10 in the Top 100 Facts series. And, it's not going to be as much fun as the title. So I've sort of touched on it, and all these facts, like I said, are going to have some relationship to each other. And so this one I primarily wanted to just deal with the general subject of want and desire, and what it constitutes as a motivating force. I mean, are we just an erection chasing a, whatever the sexual preference is? I've used the analogy of rats in a maze chasing cheese. And, that maybe we should strive to do better than that, try to climb out of the maze and try to figure out how to build a better purpose for ourselves. But most people, if you look inside yourself, you're hungry for things. And these things you're hungry for, half of them are just the routine maintenance, the things nature imposes. The obvious ones: food and sex and comfort. We certainly know when something's not right, and we strive to be comfortable, full belly, no nagging pain or misery, not too much tension, whatever. These are things we run away from. We try to appease whatever the level of discomfort we're carrying at the moment is, the stress or whatever. And then there's this other little percentage of our lives that's built out of what we define as purpose, what we've constructed as our purpose. For a lot of people, they have kids, and that's pretty distracting, pretty consuming. It's a project, you're completing the build a human being project, basically. And so it's got lots to motivate you, sense of responsibility, sense of obligation. But let's say if you're just outside of all these things, what is life in general? It is this constant pursuit. You're constantly hungry, you're constantly horny, you're constantly something else. You're always driven. You have these moments of perfection, and beyond that, it's a lot of work and effort and hunger. Just that whole idea that this just keeps reoccurring. It just keeps, you fulfill it, you satisfy it, and just something grows back up in you again. You've got to again. It establishes itself. It dominates your attention again. And in overview, it's, there's a silliness to it. I don't mean to trivialize life, but it is a little bit ludicrous, that there really isn't any true accomplishment. The only accomplishment is satisfying need. We are creating our own purpose, and there's a flaw in that we don't even very efficiently fulfill our own need. So here we are, we're this expression of need, and we're always left somewhat unsatisfied. And so we're a failure right from the start, because satisfaction is death. Satisfaction is, there's no incentive, there's no more chasing of the cheese, there's no anything. So you can't really become satisfied. It's like antimatter to life, satisfaction. And so when you look at it as a sort of an insidious game, insidious rat race, maze race, whatever you want to call it. And look, I know this is a popular subject. People just don't want to deal with something they don't want to deal with. I don't know exactly what it is. I mean, they're just sort of rejecting the notion. I mean, even atheists have to have the pretense of purpose and the pretense that life makes sense. And they often use nature as an example or something, that, you know, because nature, you know, because animals are compelled to live just because they're constantly hungry and playing the rat maze game and blah blah blah, and don't seem to be complaining, that somehow that means we should just fall into that role. And you know, and part of it is just the tradition. I mean, even though people are atheists, they're still brought up in a culture that you know, sort of beats this into your head, that this all makes sense somehow, that there's some underlying reason to be doing this. And I mean, to me, it's, I won't say explicitly it's, you know, the 10th fact of life is that life has no purpose. I'm just going to say that the 10th fact is that this is an open question, and that it's a question that really needs some sort of attention. I mean, it's worth conversation, it's worth discussion, trying to find the true meaning of life, because we can't deny the fact that it does have significance. We can't deny that suffering exists. I mean, I did a video already, you know, on suffering. I mean, it's a reality. It's part of the context we're living in. And there's this equation. I mean, it's out there. There's this fucking equation, and the equation is begging us to answer, you know, to fill in the numbers and to say, well, you know, here's the unsatisfied need that humanity leaves behind, the refuse, the waste, you know, the consumption, and on this other side is what we produce, you know, what all the chasing accomplishes. And we have to wonder what the balance is, what equals what. And I would theorize, I mean, unfortunately, I have a very negative conclusion that I've come to in filling out the equation, in that, yeah, our net product is always going to be a negative. And the best we can achieve as a community of rats, you know, who have been created by nature and have this intelligence and all the rest of this stuff, the best we can accomplish is to minimize how much we lose. I mean, that's sort of a depressing concept, it's a depressing idea, but I don't think you can get much more out of life and then to try first to minimize the losses. It's almost like the physician motto, you know, first do no harm. It's like we to find our purpose, our only purpose might be, and is to do as little harm as possible, you know, is to try not to create more need than is necessary, or to create need in people that is extravagant and gluttonous and wasteful, and you know, just, but there's a, like I said, there's a point here, is that you're just going to keep getting erections, you're going to keep, desire is going to keep showing up. And it's not until you've been so degraded by decomposition are you finally going to be saying, yes, it's time to go, let me free me. You know, you'll beg for an end, because everything will be, all the want will be driven out of you, either by suffering or by a complete lack of ambition, a complete lack of, you'll be limp on life, you know, there'll just be no desire left, no force inside of you, just compelling you to accomplish something new or to do something new. And like I said, most of the time that only happens because it gets so hard to do any doing. I mean, everything just, you know, you get old enough and it just gets hard to accomplish. It gets hard, everything just gets hard work. The work gets harder and harder to accomplish. And so you get worn down by that. But that's, you know, people just don't give up on it. People just can't, you know, the hunger just doesn't let go of them. But like I said, if you were able to take your perspective and change it, you know, and see yourself in the maze, it, in my opinion, becomes kind of apparent. I mean, it becomes kind of obvious that we are just chasing, and it's just this, we're chasing a perception, an illusion, a mirage created by our own brains. I mean, the desire is contrived by our nature, and the image of the fulfillment of the desire is another contrived notion, a hope or a wish or a fantasy. And we create it and we chase it. And that's the nature of life. And in my opinion, it's not a very good nature. It's a nature we've got to spend some time considering and picking apart to see if there's, purpose in all that.